The House committee investigating the January 6th attack on the Capitol will hold its first major public hearing this week in prime time. Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern is when it all starts. The committee says that the hearings will provide the American people with new information on the multi-step effort to overturn the election and prevent the peaceful transfer of power. Now, ahead of that hearing, ABC News Chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl spoke to South Carolina Congressman Tom Rice, one of the few Republicans who voted in favor to impeach the former president. Take a look.
You surprised almost everybody when you came out and voted in favor of impeachment.
It wasn't that hard. I mean, when I thought about what had happened and the president's activity or inactivity that day, when he sat there and he put his own vice president's life and the vice president's wife and daughter's life at risk of people shouting, "Hang Mike Pence." When he watched the Capitol, the People's House, being sacked, when he watched the Capitol police officers being beaten for 3 or 4 hours and lifted not one finger to stop it. The more I read about that and the more I learned about it, it was clear to me what I had to do. I was livid. I'm livid today about it. I took an oath to protect the Constitution, and I did it then, and I would do it again tomorrow.
How many of your House Republican colleagues believe exactly what you just said? Privately?
I think more than you might imagine.
More than you might imagine. Okay, I want to ask you about that, John Karl. But first of all, the fact that you got this interview, that he sat down with you, that he was so transparent, why did he wait this long?
First of all, I've been trying to get this interview almost since the day he voted to impeach, because he was the single most surprising Republican vote in favor of impeachment, because unlike most of the others who came from districts where Trump wasn't particularly popular, he comes from the heart of Trump country, one of the most conservative districts in South Carolina. And I'll tell you, Kira, no other Republican until that vote had voted more consistently with Donald Trump than Tom Rice. No other Republican from South Carolina. So he finally, you know, the primary is on June 14th, and I think he wanted to be fully on the record that even now, as he may lose, his political career may be over, we'll see. Trump's tried to beat him. He's trying really hard to beat him. Probably may well do so, that he has no regrets for that vote.
So it's interesting because critics are probably going to see this, right? Yep. And say, well, where were you? Why didn't you speak up a lot sooner? And then you mention all these other Republicans that feel the same, but you probably, you know, won't hear from them. Why? Does this show the power that Trump still has, the threat that he still gives out? Put it in perspective.
Well, first, in terms of Rice, you know, he spoke as loudly as you could speak by putting that card in and voting yes on impeachment.
Right.
I mean, that was on the record, you know, standing up and taking the ultimate step against the President of the United States. And then he, you know, he spent the remaining time working on his district, you know, working on things key there. Not running from his vote, but not harping on it. In terms of the others, I mean, it's remarkable. I hear this all the time. I mean, trust me, Kira. I'm sure you've heard some of this too.
We've talked about it a lot.
You see
behind closed doors.
Behind closed doors. Oh my God, he's nuts. He's crazy. This is terrible. Then they come out before the cameras and they do everything they can to placate Donald Trump because they're afraid that if they cross him, you know, that he'll get the last laugh.
Why? Why?
You know, it's not something that happens in a vacuum. The fact is that Donald Trump does have a hold on rank-and-file Republican voters across the country. They don't necessarily always approve of his behavior and some of the more outrageous things he's done, but there's a magnetism, and they support him. Now, you know, some have defied Trump and lived to tell about it in the Republican Party, but many others have defied Trump and then bought a ticket to obscurity and lost primaries and lost elections.
And there's so much talk about Liz Cheney now, and that possibly her career is over. But I don't know. Terry Moran, our coworker, and I were talking this morning, thinking maybe she'll be running for governor. We shouldn't. This is someone we should probably keep our eye on, right?
Well, it's fascinating. By the way, Rice, who is very different from Liz Cheney, you know, in many ways, but they're both real conservatives. Rice, I asked him if he could support Kevin McCarthy for Speaker. He wouldn't answer. And I said, well, what do you think of Liz Cheney? And I wasn't asking about in context of the speakership. It's, oh, she'd be a great Speaker of the House. I mean, he's very proud of her. He's not, you know, he's not part of this committee. He repeats some of the criticism that other Republicans have of this committee. But you know, he is very proud of his colleague, Liz Cheney.
What do you want to see in these hearings? We're going to go full bore with this week.
I'll tell you what to watch for. There's going to be new material that comes out, but some of the most compelling new material is going to be new visual material. There are thousands of hours of surveillance video of the Capitol that nobody's ever seen. It's not been released publicly. We've seen some of it in some of these court cases, but there's much more to come. They also have photographs from the official White House photographers, photographs of Mike Pence when he was, you know, down in the basement of the Capitol in a parking garage. Photos that I saw with my eyes when I was reporting on my book, Betrayal, but have never been released publicly. And those, I assume, we are going to see. So look for visual breaking news as well as some factual developments.
Sources behind the scenes say that there's some serious producing that's going on.
Yeah,
our
old colleague James Goldston, we learned today, has been brought on by the committee, and you know, James was the president of ABC News, but he was also way before that, you know, pretty serious documentary filmmaker. So I think that's why they chose him.
It's going to be something to watch for sure. John Carl, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, well, make sure and keep it here on ABC News Live for full coverage of the January 6th hearings. As we mentioned, coverage starts on Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.